Hey Internet, it's me, Chef Lethal. No silly intros today for tasty techniques. We're getting right down to business because today we're making pizza. Not just any pizza, grilled pizza with your own sauce and a balsamic reduction. Yeah. Okay, what did I just say about silly intros? Anyway, we're gonna be making a dough from scratch today that's gonna take about 2 minutes to make, to put together. You're gonna need a food processor for that, so if you don't have one, go buy one. Seriously though, the dough is that good and that easy. We're also going to be making a sauce from scratch. That's just going to sit on the burner for like an hour. You don't have to do anything with it after we put all the ingredients together. Again, super easy. And I'm also going to be making a balsamic reduction. This is going to blow your mind. It's so easy and it tastes so good. And not only is it great on pizza, it's good on steak and chicken and fish and spoons and salads and just anything. It's just really, really good. And it's super simple to put together. All that said, today is only part one of our peculiar pizza party. Stay tuned next week where we actually put the dough on the grill and top it and eat it. Today we're just laying the foundation, making the sauce and the reduction and the dough. So I'm gonna show you the ingredient list right now, but we're just gonna pay attention to the sauce first. We're gonna go ahead and get that on the stove. All right guys, we're just gonna make the sauce right now, so don't pay attention to the right side of the board. For the sauce, you're going to need a large can of tomato. I'm making a double batch, so I've got two 28-ounce cans of whole peeled plum tomatoes. You're gonna need some olive oil, and in this case you can use extra virgin. You're gonna use some butter. That's optional. This sauce can actually be made vegan just by taking out the butter. You're gonna need some garlic powder. You're gonna need some crushed red pepper flake, some whole basil sprigs, 1/2 of an onion, and kosher salt, which of course is never optional. It's time to put these things together. Okay guys, I've got a large saucepan here. First thing that goes in is a pat of butter. Obviously, leave that out if you're going vegan. It's probably about 1/2 tablespoon or so. And I'm also gonna throw in a little bit of extra virgin olive oil, probably another tablespoon there. And then I'm gonna hit about medium heat. Make sure I'm hitting medium. And I'm gonna let this go, swirling it every once in a while until the butter is completely melted and the oil and the butter have kind of mingled. Okay guys, my butter is completely melted, incorporated with the oil, so I'm gonna start adding in a healthy pinch first of kosher salt. Hear the sizzle. A little bit of ground red pepper. I didn't put any amounts on the ingredient list because just use your eyes here. I don't want to teach you guys recipes, I want to teach you the technique. I've got some garlic powder here. I like to go a little bit heavy on the garlic powder. I'm Italian after all. Ooh. Okay, and then I didn't put it on the ingredient list, but I do like to add a little bit of dried oregano. Just to kind of give it an herby little kick there. All right, and then I'm just going to give it a stir. And just kind of let that mingle for a little bit. You don't want the heat to get too hot, so kind of monitor it, turn it down a little bit low if you need to. But we're just going to let this kind of meld and let the fat bring out all the flavors in the dried herbs and stuff. This is a good point to warn the people that you live with that you're cooking this because your house is going to start to smell very, very good. Okay, so everything's all good to go. Remember that onion I told you about? Here you go, 1/2 of an onion. Don't do anything fancy with it. Don't dice it, don't julienne it, don't do nothing. We're going to drop this in. I like to put it cut side down just to kind of let it get in those nice spices and everything. It's going to be great. And then one, basil sprig. Don't worry, I'm not going to pick up the leaf that dropped. And then before this has a chance to do anything else, we're going to go ahead and toss in the tomatoes. Now remember, that's loud. Remember guys, I'm making a double batch here. So I got 1 can, I got 2 cans here. 2 cans, Sam. That's probably copywritten and I can't say that. With everything in, we're just going to give it a stir, just to make sure that everything has access to everything, really just to get all the herbs and the spices kind of just mixed in with all those tomatoes. And if you got whole tomatoes like I did, don't worry so much about crushing them up, we'll do that later. Also, while you're stirring, don't try to agitate the onion too much, because then the layers come off and all this is going to get strained out anyway, so we don't really want it in the final product. With everything in, stirred, good to go, I'm going to turn my heat up just a little bit. The goal here is to have slight little bubbles popping and evaporate some of this extra liquid. We're going to reduce this liquid by a bit, but this part's done. It's time to move on. With the sauce on the stove, it's time to get busy on that balsamic reduction. You're gonna need some bottles of balsamic vinegar. I'm gonna be using 2 bottles here. You're gonna need some whole fresh herbs, some thyme, oregano. You could use rosemary if you really wanted to. I think the flavor would be a little bit too intense. You could use basil as well, but I'm gonna be using thyme and oregano both. And then you're gonna need some fresh garlic crushed. Don't look at the dough, we're not there yet. Okay guys, this is my favorite part for the balsamic reduction. We're gonna smash some garlic up. So just grab a piece and smash it under the heel of your knife like that. Get rid of any paper, but just use the garlic. So I've got like 5 or so decent little sized cloves here. I'm gonna strip all the paper here in just a sec. I just wanted to smash it all first. Ooh, that guy's no good. Maybe I'll get another one. But I'll do that and then show you guys what we gotta do at the stove. This is all the work we have to do really for this balsamic though. It's pretty great. With the garlic smashed, all we gotta do is get everything into this pan. Now I'm working right next to my sauce that's going on right now, and I'm just gonna peek over every once in a while and just make sure that the bubbling looks okay and that nothing's weird's happening. I'm also gonna give it a stir. Don't be afraid to get in there and give it a stir every once in a while. You wanna make sure that the heat's evenly distributed and that you don't like burn the bottom or anything, because that would be awful. Be way too much of a hassle to try to save a sauce after that. I'm also bubbling a little aggressively, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn my heat down on that just a touch. Just like that. Forget the sauce for now, back to the balsamic. I've got 2 bottles of balsamic vinegar here. I'm gonna just go ahead and pour those in. Again guys, this seriously could not be any easier. So I got a small saucepan with my balsamic in there now. I'm gonna toss in the garlic cloves that we just crushed. Okay. I've got some leftover basil from the pack that I had, so I'm just gonna go ahead and toss that in too, why not? It's extra flavor. I've got some oregano here. I'm just gonna throw in like 2 sprigs, just 2. And then the same for the thyme. Let's do like 2, 3, ooh. Okay, so like 5. 5 sprigs. I'm gonna give this a stir. Once it's all combined, I'm gonna hit the heat up to about medium as well. The whole goal here is we're gonna reduce this liquid down. We're gonna evaporate all the water to make it into a nice syrup, or syrup, depending on where you're from. My sauce is still going a little bit too aggressive. I'm gonna kick that down. Keep in mind where your top level is right now for both your sauce and your balsamic, because what we're looking for is a reduction, so you can kind of tell where you are based on where you started. So keep that in mind. But these are good. It's time to get that dough going. Okay, now we can look at the dough, and if you'll notice, everything's in metric and by weight. That is not an accident. We are going to be weighing all these ingredients. It's very important that they are all weighed out and that they match what it says on the board. We've got 638 grams of bread flour. Don't use all-purpose, don't use cake flour, you need bread flour. We've got white sugar, kosher salt, instant yeast, extra virgin olive oil, and some lukewarm water. Lukewarm being if you stick your finger in it, it feels just a little bit warm, it's not hot. Now let me show you how easy this is. You know what I have here, guys? Well, I'll tell you. It's a food processor filled with about 638 grams of bread flour. To that, we're gonna add the kosher salt, the 10 grams of kosher salt that we talked about. We're gonna add the 14 grams of white sugar and the 10 grams of instant yeast. All right. So I'm gonna slap that lid on that bad boy. We're gonna pulse this about 4 times just to make sure everything is incorporated. Yeah. With all the dry ingredients incorporated, it's time to add the wet stuff. So I'm gonna take the lid off. I've got the 15 ounces of lukewarm water. It's about 99.4 degrees. If you're like me, you're gonna weigh it out and use the thermometer to temp it out. So I'm gonna drizzle that in, or just add it, that's fine. Now this is gonna look really full, but trust me, it's gonna be okay. Famous last words, right? And then I've got my extra virgin olive oil. We're gonna toss that in. Put the lid back on. And we're gonna run this for about 15 seconds. 15 seconds later, no mess, which is always a nice thing. And then I'm gonna peek in. The ball has kind of started coming together. It's one kind of big homogeneous mass. It's a little sticky, this is fine. Slap the lid back on and hit it for another 15 seconds. Now I've moved over to a clean, large workspace, and I'm gonna hit it with a little bit more flour, just a little bit, lightly. Okay, that's good. Just a little bit there. Now I'm going to get my dough ball and kind of just turn it out. It should still feel a little warm. If it sticks to the inside of the bowl here, that is perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. All right, just be very careful. These blades are extremely sharp, very sharp. Don't just go tossing this in your sink or whatever. You know, you gotta be careful with this thing. All right. So now we've got a nice little homogeneous piece of dough here. I'm just gonna give it a few turns here on the board, on my countertop, just a few. And that's all the work that we're gonna need to do with it. Now the hard part is dividing this into 3 equal pieces. How am I gonna do that? Well, if you see in the upper left of the screen there, I have my scale. I'm not joking, guys. If you don't have a scale, you need to get one. Okay, I've still got it set to metric because it's easier to divide that way. So this recipe makes 3 of these doughs, like 3 pizza doughs. So if I weigh the whole thing, it's 1,128. So divided by 3, 1,100. Doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm gonna go for about 400 grams or so per dough. So this first one was 355. I've just added another little ball, 397. That's good. So I'll just kind of mix that in, and that'll be good. So there's one. So theoretically, I should be able to just chop this in half. I feel like this side's a little bit bigger, so let's go like that maybe. 340 and 391. I tell you what, I'm okay with that. Okay, so I'm gonna get my scale out of here. And then these guys, I'm just gonna roll them into a little ball. So like what I like to do is take that here and kind of just fold the bottom in, and then do the same on the other side, same on the other side, just to kind of make it into a little sphere. If you want, you can kind of spin it around on the counter a little bit, just to make it a nice little ball and kind of get everything on the bottom. And then I've got these deli containers here. These are 1 quart containers. If you don't have these cool containers, not to worry. You can just zip these dough balls up into Ziploc bags, quart size or gallon size Ziploc bags, and it'll be just as well. The dough's done. Next step, throw this bad boy in the refrigerator. Once they're in the fridge, they're gonna stay there for at least a day, up to about 5 days. You're gonna see this thing just explode in a good way. The yeast is gonna go nuts, start expanding. It's gonna be great. I've got to tend to my sauces, so we'll be right back when those are done. Okay guys, it's been about an hour, maybe a little bit longer, and my sauce is done. You can see I have a line in here where the sauce started, and I've reduced down probably about 1.25 inches or so. So now I've got my stick blender here, and I'm going to kind of just beat this up a little bit because it's still chunky from those whole tomatoes. I don't want it too like perfectly smooth, but just a little bit. I'm just going to find where the chunks are and just kind of give it a pulse. Obviously, I've strained out the onion and the basil for the most part. Get what you can get. It doesn't have to be perfect. But that said, you do want to get most of it. You want to be careful when you're doing this because it's hot. It's very, very hot. If you do not have a stick blender like this, just go ahead and get diced tomatoes in the can. You don't have to get the whole ones. But this way you can kind of control the texture. Now's a good time to taste. You know, I hate it on TV when the host will taste something and it's perfect the first time, every time. Unfortunately, this is pretty right on and it's the first time. So I'm going to go ahead and transfer that to my container here and then put it in the fridge. And the balsamic's done as well. You can see I'm way down here and everything's kind of loosey-goosey right now because it's hot, but as it cools, it'll thicken. So I'm gonna actually just pour this right into this gravy separator. It also works really well at sorting out the, oops, I'm spilling, But it works wonders at getting out the garlic and the herbs that are in here. Whew. I'm gonna get a nostril cleaning too, let me tell you. I put everything in the gravy separator here because it's easy to just take this out like that. And then I have easy access to pour this into my bottle. Perfect. And that's going to wrap up our Peculiar Pizza Party Part 1, Internet. Thank you for joining me. I know this was kind of a weird episode because we didn't actually finish anything, but tune in next week when we actually get to shape the dough, put it on the grill, and eat what we have worked so hard on. And by work really hard on, I of course mean just watch things sit on a stove and get less and less and less. I've got my sauce ready to go back in the refrigerator. I've got my Balsamic Reduction ready to go in the refrigerator. And a quick note about that before I let you guys go. Let it cool down and then check it. You gotta check the consistency to make sure that it's more like a syrup and less like just a liquid, just like water. That's the whole point of the reduction. So if you test it when it's cooled and it's not thick enough or it moves too much, we'll just toss it back in the pan and then put it on medium heat again and just let it reduce and reduce just a little bit more so that the rest of the liquid just kind of goes away. But again, that's going to wrap it up for today, guys. Tune in next week when we actually finish this guy up. I'm Chef Lethal. I'll see you guys next time.